everybody has to have an alter ego, right? And I've been thinking about what my alter ego would be, and I think I have an alter ego. His name's Mr. Unlimited. You gotta be unlimited. You gotta have a thought process of being unlimited. So when people ask you, what you're thinking about or what you want to do in life or where you want to go, you gotta be unlimited. Tell them, I'm unlimited.
Here we go.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Here we go indeed. How about Russell Wilson yesterday? Mr. Unlimited. Listen, we got a lot to talk about today. I'm banging my camera around. I'm so excited to talk about my Steelers. We'll get to them in about 12 minutes. Why this Pittsburgh Steelers team is the most terrifying in the AFC today. Not the best necessarily, but the most terrifying. Also going to get into the college football flag planting that is, it has divided a lot of college football fans. Some are pearl clutching, some are saying let the kids be kids. I got a strong take on it later on in today's show. Also getting into the Kansas City Chiefs. We predicted their game on Friday's Black Friday show on noon, and safe to say they didn't look so great against the likes of one of the worst teams in football, Las Vegas Raiders. I'll explain why the arguments against the Chiefs right now, kind of illogical. Get into that later in the show. Shoot, what else we got? We got the Eagles taking out the Ravens. Not really surprised by the outcome of that game. Philly's on a roll. The Ravens are still undergoing an identity crisis of what the heck has happened to Justin Tucker. Get into that later. Week 13 recap around the National Football. Again, of course, we'll have predictions for tonight's match between the Denver Broncos, who are hosting the Cleveland Browns. Predict that at the end of today's show. I think this is Bo Nix's second nationally televised primetime game. He played the TNF game, so we'll see what he does tonight against Cleveland. But let's get started with last night's Winter Wonderland, or second of the year. But first, I watched that game last night, the 49ers and the Browns. So we could all see from a mile away that the Bills were going to take care of this one handily. It was snowing like crazy. They had to get some residents of Buffalo. They paid them $20 an hour. They gave them food, hot beverages to try and keep them warm. But the Bills fans were typical Bills fans, typical, Bills Mafia, doing what they do, and that's being intensely loyal, shown up under the worst of circumstances as it pertains to the weather. And Buffalo got the dominant W, 35-10. And Josh Allen, we could show you all stats provided by our friends at StatMe's. All graphics provided by my man, Alfred Parsard Jr. Love you, Alfred. Let's put up the graphic right here with Josh Allen did, because it was quite historic. All right, 14 of 18, 77% completion is pretty amazing. Only 173 total yards, but 2 pass touchdowns, 1 rush touchdown, and a receiving touchdown that had Chris Collinsworth on NBC about to fall over, okay? But Josh Allen, only player in NFL history with a touchdown throw, run, and catch in the same game. Josh Allen, I must say, has had a pretty good last 10 days of his life. Going back to his engagement 10 days ago, he beat the Chiefs, the division's falling apart, and the Bills are rolling. It's been a pretty good 2 weeks for Josh Allen. But I'm watching that game, and these have been 2 organizations that I think are incredibly well run, good ownership, good GMs, and have competed for Super Bowls for the last 5+ years or so. The Niners are obviously not going to do that. This year, the Bills are. But as I'm watching, I couldn't help myself from this thought coming in my head. Okay, the Bills for the last 5 to 6 years have been building around their superstar quarterback with whatever pieces they can put around him. Be it coaching, be it ancillary pieces, receivers, defense, the whole bit. And the 49ers have tried to build their quarterback around what once was an all-star roster. It's not now because, they're the most beat-up team in the National Football League. I've never seen anything like it. Christian McCaffrey, according to Shanahan's, out for the year now with that injury suffered in the first half. Jordan Mason, they just put on IR. So, listen, the kid, Garindo, is a nice player. I like him. But, man, you're down to your third-string running back. Ayuk's gone. Debo is a shell of himself. Trent Williams, God bless him. He's going through some terrible stuff going on right now. Prayers for Trent Williams. And, even another player on the Niners, a roster. I I forget who it was, dealing with situations family-wise. This has been the season from hell for the 49ers, and Shanahan hasn't done his best coaching job. But I was thinking about, okay, building around your quarterback as opposed to building your quarterback around your roster. That's the difference between these two franchises, both of which have been successful. Frankly, the Niners have been more successful. But what is more sustainable? Now, first of all, finding a franchise a franchise quarterback's really hard. Finding a superstar quarterback's almost impossible. You got to get a high draft pick, hit on him. Then you got to get the right coaching staff. A lot of pieces got to come around. But the Niners, with Shanahan, when they constructed this incredible roster around 2017, 18, 19 in the draft, they had some pieces of free agency like Richard Sherman back in the day. And they said, okay, Jimmy Garoppolo's not perfect, has an injury history, doesn't move that well. We're not sure if he can play from behind. So we will ensure that all of the above scenarios won't come to pass because we'll just put a bunch of all-stars around him. And it got him to a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl, so came pretty close. If Jimmy makes a throw to Emmanuel Sanders, they win that game in all likelihood over Kansas City back in 2019. And then they had the down year, 2020, the injuries, whatever. 2020 was a weird year for a number of reasons. 2021 rolls around. It's pretty much the same roster, same all-star level dudes, and he gets to the NFC Championship with the limited quarterback of Garoppolo. But what happened before that? Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and the 49ers front office said, you know what? We've got these guys, we've got this roster, but we have to, our quarterback is so limited. And I was on this train with Jimmy G for years about his limitations. We have to account for so many of his flaws as opposed to him elevating us. Well, we're just going to sell the farmer draft picks and go get Trey Lance because he can lift us. Yeah, that didn't work out so well at all. And by the way, I was the first on the train who was dead wrong about Trey Lance. The kid has an accuracy problem. He's really athletic, upside, but if he couldn't work with Shanahan, I'm not really sure who he can work with. Nothing against Mike McCarthy, but he's not Kyle Shanahan, to put it mildly. Okay, so you have all those different scenarios. They tried Trey Lance. It didn't work, so got to go back to Garoppolo. After Trey Lance get hurt in 2022, and all of a sudden, Garoppolo goes down, and here's Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. It's like, who's this guy? This guy looks really good. He looks even better than Garoppolo, which he is. If not for an elbow injury, could have gotten to a Super Bowl in 2022. The elbow came back fine in 2023. They did make a Super Bowl. But once the all-star roster goes down, not that Purdy's supposed to lift them to the Super Bowl. That's not realistic for most quarterbacks. He's just not good enough to get the most out of the juice that is there. Folks, these Buffalo Bills rosters, I've said it. I'm not going to act like they're bad. I'm not going to act like they were the Patriots or something. But I've said for years, it's why I was always, over the course of the last few years, quite sheepish, up until this year, on the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, offensive line isn't great. Diggs is really good. Gabe Davis, I guess, has a good playoff game every once in a while. And, well, they don't run it that well. I don't trust their defense in the playoffs. And Josh Allen, for my criticism of him as it pertains to his recklessness, which today it seems like he is just eliminated. It's unbelievable. Maybe the Joe Brady hiring is what did it. The guy just doesn't throw interceptions anymore. He doesn't make mistakes. That I was always like, yeah, Josh gets the most out of the Bills. Oh, they're losing to the Chiefs in the playoffs. What are you going to do? Oh, what are you going to do? He's losing to Kansas City. He's losing to Mahomes. He's playing amazing in those games. Oh, what do you want him to do? Whereas the 49ers, it's, God, I hope Trent Williams is healthy. Oh, if McCaffrey goes down, we're screwed. What's going to happen if Keon Coleman's been out for a while? Amari Cooper wasn't even there to start the season. They've had games where they didn't run that football that effectively with James Cook. Kincaid's been out. I mean, they've dealt with Khalil Shakir's beat up. They are dealing with a number of injuries over the course of the season, in which what I think, which is why I believed in the Bills before this year, is a more balanced roster. But they have a guy who, if the fit does hit the shan, you know you're going to get the most out of it. This isn't even an anti-Brock Purdy thing. This is the Niners weren't necessarily wrong on how they built the roster. For crying out loud, they came close to winning 2 Super Bowls and getting to another. And maybe another if Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt. But it does have a hard ceiling if those guys get older and get more injured. George Kittle's getting up there in age. Shows McCaffrey. Trent Williams is one of the oldest offensive linemen in the National Football League. Deebo Samuel is a shell of himself of what he used to be. Now I rely on Jordan Mason, who's a good running back. Hate that he got injured, knock on wood for him. But, I mean, he's a good player. But that's kind of it. Brandon Ayuk's got an injury problem. Before he got injured, he was dropping the football. You are relying on a lot of variables to make sure you get the most out of your quarterback. And with the Buffalo Bills, it's long as Josh is good, we're fine. Our receivers can miss games. You know, we may not run the football that effectively any given Sunday. More times than not, we know 17 is going to be awesome. Now, again, I'm not trying to say Brock Purdy should be like Josh Allen. That's unrealistic. Only Mahomes can do the things. And by the way, Mahomes can't do with his legs as effective as he's a runner. Can't do with his legs what Josh Allen can do. Both have a comparable arm strengths. Really only Mahomes and maybe someday Caleb Williams. Only guys I think in the league currently that can do the things Josh Allen can do. But it's how they built their roster. Okay, can we get the right offensive coordinator? The Bills got Brian Dable, but then Dable went to the Giants. It's like, yeah, the Ken Dorsey years. It was kind of bumpy. Allen was still great, but he was turning the ball over a ton. And now you get Joe Brady. And now you build the offensive line. And now you're able to put together not even an all-star group of guys, but a more well-rounded roster. And now they're 10-2, and they are, I think, clearly the biggest threat to Kansas City in the AFC. Now here comes Pittsburgh, but Buffalo, I mean, they literally just beat Kansas City a couple of weeks ago, and Josh Allen's played the most efficient football of his career. They're running the football better than they have at any point in the Josh Allen era. I mean, this is a scary Bills team. Like, I think we've known that for a while. I'll get to the Jets later in my Week 13 recap. I was appalled at why the Jets were favored over Buffalo to win the division. I'm like, the Bills are literally better at everything. Coach, quarterback, defense, wide receiver, a whole thing. Won the division now 5 years in a row, clinched it Thanksgiving weekend with 5 games to go. And as Josh Allen said, he was up front after the game. We're going after the 1 seed. We are going after that 1 seed. We want to get home field advantage going to Buffalo because that's one of the best home field advantages in football, in sports for that matter. So kudos to the Bills. Very impressive win last night. Again, the Josh Allen touchdown pass himself. I get a kick looking at the box score. Josh Allen, 0 catches, 7 yards, 1 touchdown. Listen, if I were an official, would I have probably whistled it dead on the Amari Cooper play? Was it probably forward progress? Probably, but I'm glad he didn't because it was a fun play. One of the plays of the NFL season. But, yeah, you see how these two franchises built their rosters, and it's like, not that San Francisco did it wrong. They came awfully close multiple times to doing it. But if you don't, your window closes much quicker than the other team, who, by the way, has never been to a Super Bowl, has been to one AFC championship game. But you have the capability to do it for a longer period of time. That's the thing with Buffalo. And that's what I saw the difference in that game last night. It was quite jarring, to put it mildly. But I'll tell you what, though. It's Josh Allen is the perfect quarterback for Buffalo. Not in just the sense, like from an intangible perspective, Buffalo's an underdog city. They lost 4 straight Super Bowls in the 90s. Their fan base is the best, and they've never seen a title. And Josh Allen was an underdog in high school, went to Wyoming, not USC or Wyoming. And now he's one of the top players in professional football. And so I think he fits that city, though, because Buffalo probably has worse weather than any city in the NFL, even Green Bay, Chicago. Rocket arm, moves well, and just embodies that city physically, emotionally. And listen, this is a fun Bills team to watch. I mean, I said it earlier this year. This is the best Bills team of the Josh Allen era. And I do think that we're in a space with them where, man, if they don't win it this year, when are they going to? Kansas City has shown vulnerabilities. I'll get to the Chiefs later in the show. They've shown vulnerabilities. The Steelers are scary, but Josh Allen, I love Russell Wilson, but Josh Allen's better than Russell Wilson. Let's not get too carried away, Steelers Nation. Okay, the Chargers are limited at receiver. I got a million questions about the Ravens. I mean, you look up and down the AFC. This is Buffalo's best shot to do it. And assuming everybody stays moderately healthy, which, by the way, they've dealt with a lot of injuries this year, like San Francisco, haven't missed a beat. Have not missed a beat. So kudos to the Bills for that impressive win last night. Took care of business. Now, get this terrible towel over around my shoulders. You know, Pittsburgh, I was obviously wrong. I said Tomlin would preserve the non-losing season streak. There was people that didn't think he would. I've said this, Mike Tomlin, he's going to. And by the way, Coach Tomlin literally clinched that yesterday in Cincinnati, where the Steelers won 44-38 over the Cincinnati Bengals. By the way, this has become like a weekly tradition for Cincinnati. Joe Burrow played. Now, Joe Burrow did not play his best game. You look at the numbers, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, but Joe Burrow did turn the ball over 3 times in this game, including one for a scoop and score touchdown for Peyton Wilson. But this has been a story of this year for Cincinnati. Burrow's having the best year of his career, and they can't stop anything. But for Pittsburgh, and I cannot give Mike Tomlin enough credit for the evolution as a coach that he went through in the last 10 months, 12 months. The Steelers over the last 5, 6, 7 years, hitch in the mouth, defense, we're going to run the football effectively, and we're going to just kind of get the most out of whatever quarterback we have. We'll see what it has. It could be an old Big Ben. It could be Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Rudolph, Lainey Wilson's boyfriend, Duck Hodges. Didn't know they were together until last week. Shout out to those two. And just kind of go from there. And Mike Tomlin said, you know what? I haven't won a playoff game since the Obama administration. Maybe need to tweak some things a little bit. Maintain our identity as a football team and as a culture. Pittsburgh, tough, hit you in the mouth, defense, run the football. But we need a difference maker at quarterback. And for the record, didn't think Russell Wilson was going to be that guy. Listen, when I said over and over, when he signed in Pittsburgh, I'm like, well, it's better than what we had, so I'm cool with that, and he's cheap. 1 year, cheap, better than what we have. It's not a bad signing. You trade for Justin Fields, well, he has upside. Haven't loved him the last few years, but there's upside there, maybe. But the key move, you replace the worst offensive coordinator in professional football and maybe even college football, Matt Canada. Get him the heck out of here. Get one of the smartest OCs, called it from the jump, Arthur Smith. Pair him with the Russell Wilson, who was fixed by Sean Payton at the end in Denver that last year. Didn't get along, but Russell Wilson was certainly better in year 2 in Denver than he was when he was horrible in year 1. And Mike Tomlin said, I'm going to maintain the culture, the identity, everything that makes the Steelers a historically great franchise. But we got to adapt to the modern NFL. And he was late to the party. But boy, once he's arrived, my goodness, since Russell Wilson, first of all, let's look at what Russell's done individually since Tomlin inserted in the lineup with heavy scrutiny, by the way. People didn't, including myself, didn't think Russell should have started after Fields started 4-2. Here's Russell Wilson. He's been excellent. 3rd in pass yards per game, 9th in touchdowns, 6th in interceptions, which is a good thing, 8th in passer rating. And by the way, how about this? A 97.7 passer rating does Russell Wilson have on throws of 15 or more yards down the field, according to Pro Football Focus. That is numero uno, number 1 in the National Football League. But as an offense, since Russell Wilson is inserted, bam, the Steelers are an elite offensive team. 2nd in total yards per game, 4th in pass yards per game, 8th in rush yards per game, 5th in points per game, 5th in points per game, and number 1 in the NFL in time of possession. Like that's the Steelers' way, like the time of possession. Hold on to the ball, rely on your defense, run the ball. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, Cordell Patterson. But we need to have the over-the-top for the defense to respect us, which will open it up for the run game. Basic game plan in the NFL. And so when you watch the Steelers team, I'm sorry. Listen, the Steelers defense hasn't looked great now. TJ Watt was awesome yesterday. He had 2 sacks. He had multiple tackles for loss, forced fumble. TJ Watt was outstanding. He's the best defensive player in football. Of course he was. But what makes the Steelers team, to me, the scariest team in the AFC, not the best. I ain't Buffalo. Well, not to spoil Bryce's best 10 on Wednesday. I still ain't Buffalo and Kansas City are better than Pittsburgh. Buffalo is playing the best of anybody in the AFC. Kansas City, I don't know. They lost 1 game, and they have the best quarterback in the world who just won the last 2 Super Bowls. Call me crazy. Gonna say they're still pretty good. Getting to the Chiefs later. Pittsburgh could beat you multiple different ways now. See, they were always scaring the playoffs in the sense that, well, if TJ Watt has a game-wrecking game and Tomlin comes that game plan and maybe they get a couple turnovers, all of a sudden you're like in a 13-13 game with 5 minutes to go. That the Steelers are the last team you want to face in that situation. But if you're facing an elite quarterback like Joe Burrow, because you're going to in the playoffs, you're going to face Mahomes, you're going to face Allen, you're going to face, well, Lamar's elite, just not in the playoffs, but Lamar's an elite player. when you face Justin Herbert, when you face these great quarterbacks, and the defense maybe doesn't have the best day at the office, or it's just great offense beats great defense any day of the week, as my man Mark Jackson would say, different sport basketball, but the point remains, defense is a bad day at the office. That's okay. That's okay. Russell Wilson is steady. He's calm. He's not going to turn. He had the interception on, the first series of the game. It should not have counted. It was a pick six. Shouldn't have counted. George Pickens got yanked down by his helmet. Whatever. Russell doesn't turn the ball over. Pickens, when he's not acting like a child, is an amazing talent with the football in his hands. Calvin Austin can beat you over the top. Mike Williams, thank you, New York Jets. Okay, Freiermuth, third down, red zone. You got a trio of running backs that are effective. Najee, Jalen Warren, and Cordell Patterson is, and by the way, the Steelers' offensive line looked better in the last couple of weeks. Still not great, but has looked better. You run into the Steelers team, especially if you go to Pittsburgh, if they're a 2 or 3 seed, my Lord, that is not an enviable position. If the offense is down, defense picks them up. If the defense is down, offense picks them up. And by the way, special teams, you might have the best kicker in football, Chris Boswell, who just doesn't miss. He had a kick blocked yesterday, but Bos doesn't miss much. He just doesn't do that. And so I cannot, in a year where Mike Tomlin extends his streak, no losing seasons, which has never been done by any coach in their career, to go as long as Tomlin's had without having a losing season once, I give him major kudos. He was late to the party, and I criticized him extensively last year on the show. But he evolved. Mike Tomlin's a smart guy. He saw the Steelers team as like, this is going to be our cap. 7 seed and first round exit is our cap until we adjust. So I'm going to get a creative offensive coordinator. I'm going to get Russell Wilson, good veteran, right? Deep ball works. And Russell, by the way, Russell Wilson, major props to him as well, because we talk about Tomlin adjusting. So did Russell. Like, as much as Tomlin might have needed Russell Wilson and the upgrade that he presented over the other quarterbacks, Russell Wilson needed Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith badly. Russell Wilson, I talked about on my show at the end of last year when the Broncos let him go and benched him in the whole situation. I was like, what is his market? Like, he's productive. Somebody will sign him, but celebrity backup, dating a very famous woman, Sierra, like, is this going to be a problem? Russell Wilson, with all the situations in Denver, with the poor leadership at the end in Seattle, again, Russell, smart guys, saw what didn't work and was like, okay, I don't have much longer left, and I want to win Super Bowls. I've held that Lombardi trophy 10 years ago. I know how it feels to come up short in the single most heartbreaking way possible. I want to get back to that stage. And so I got to adjust. I got to adjust not only to the Steelers culture, I've got to adjust myself as a leader. Because the huddle's going to be looking at me and saying, Russell, what are we going to get out of you? Not just throwing the football, not just with his mobility, escapability. What are you going to give us in terms of an intangible perspective? What are you going to give us? And Russell's been steady. Russell's been a great teammate. The guys love him. And so that was the thing I was most skeptical about, by the way. What's Russell going to be in the locker room? He's been excellent. Najee Harris posted a video yesterday. He was going to Russell's locker, and he was doing what we did to open the show today, the Mr. Unlimited. The locker room loves him. Russell's adjusted. Mike Tomlin's adjusted. 2 smart guys, 2 future Hall of Famers. In the case of Tomlin, an all-time legend. They adjusted, and now they're the scariest team in the AFC. A game and a half up on Baltimore. Take care of business against Cleveland next week with Baltimore to bye. You could be up 2 games on the Baltimore Ravens with 4 games to go. Now you play them again. Not say the division's a wrap, but you're in the catbird seat. You're in good shape. So I thought what Pittsburgh did yesterday was, it's the most yards they had since 2018, the most points they've had since 2018. It's like if you transpose the Big Ben, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell offense with this defense, oh my God, they win a Super Bowl. Like, it'd be scary. I'm not going to say it's that good. George Pickens isn't quite Antonio Brown. Certainly hope it doesn't turn an AB off the field. Russell Wilson isn't quite what Ben Roethlisberger was in his prime. Again, Ben's a first ballot Hall of Famer, 2-time champion. And Najee Harris, Najee Harris, Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon was putting up historic numbers, but Najee's more reliable physically. You don't want to face the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs. Matter of fact, I'd say you should be pretty darn terrified to face them. Best defensive player on the planet on one side, an offense that is top. I never thought I'd say those words under the current situation the Steelers are in at the quarterback position. Never, especially if you told me last year, hey, Bryson, next year, The Steelers are going to get Russell Wilson, and they're going to be one of the 5 best offenses in football by the numbers. I'd be like, huh? Well, yeah, maybe in like 2014 they would have been, but oh no, 2024, baby. Steelers are back. Steelers are continue to hold to their identity with the modern NFL. A little Nick Saban-ish in Alabama. Nick Saban didn't go away from the things that made him great at Alabama. Toughness, physicality, coach kids hard, but he said, it's a quarterback's league now, quarterback college football. I'm going to go get Jalen Hurts and Tua, and kind of what Mike Tomlin's done. And I give him major kudos for doing that. And it's why he's proven himself to be still, not that it ever changed, but just revalidates one of the 3 or 4 best coaches in the National Football League without question. I mean, Chuck Noll won 4 Super Bowls. He's the great Steelers coach. Respect to the great Bill Cowher. I think Tomlin's pretty much got him at this point. And listen, I didn't think this team could win a Super Bowl before the season. I was skeptical on whether they could even make the playoffs. Boy, oh boy. Look out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, take the terrible. Matter of fact, let's we didn't even do the black and yellow. It's black and yellow Monday. What are we talking about here?
Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow.
Wave the terrible towel, baby. Let's go. All right, we'll be back after the break to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens. I know Lamar doesn't lose to NFC teams, but I must say, one of the least shocking results of Sunday. So we'll get into that in our next segment. Stay tuned for Carver Up Live, baby. We're just getting started. How about those Steelers, baby? Welcome back to Carving Up Live. So it's the game of the day yesterday. I think what was the most anticipated game was the Philadelphia Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens. Philly won that game 21 to what was it, 21-19? Yeah, sorry, 24-19 in this game against Baltimore. You know, it's on the Eagles side. So listen, I was dead wrong about this team coming into the season. I thought they were I had them as the first team out of the NFC playoffs. I thought the lull from the end of last season, some called it a supernatural funk or whatever, and with Nick Sirianni at the coach, Kellen Moore as the OC, I thought it was going to absolutely come apart. And I actually had Chicago as the last team in, which, I mean, if we're going to be technical about it, they probably should be in that mix, but Eberflus going to Eberflus, and they're nowhere close to that. The thing, though, that has been most shocking about this Eagles team, like their defense was not going to maintain their ineptitude from last year, and they weren't going to get worse, certainly. I didn't think they'd go from, this might be the worst defense of football to, very well might be the best. Vic Fangio has literally fixed this defense. We can show you the numbers right here. 4th in points per game allowed, 1st in total yards per game allowed, 2nd in yards per play allowed, and 3rd in pass yards per game allowed. That last stat has a lot to do with the 2 rookie defensive backs. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, by the way. Quinyon Mitchell's been excellent. I saw a stat on Pro Football Focus. Like he gave up like 4 yards receiving yesterday. He was amazing against the Ravens. Cooper DeJean, though, meeting Derrick Henry in the backfield, not in the backfield, sorry. Derrick Henry makes a little catch for 2 yards away from the line of scrimmage from Lamar Jackson. Cooper DeJean comes up and bam, little rookie guy blows up the King Henry, the best or second best back in professional football. By the way, who they held in relative check, the Ravens, by the way, I forgot, what was the numbers? Oh, yeah. Threw for almost 100 or more yards in Philadelphia, ran for 26 more yards in Philadelphia. And it felt like the Eagles never were going to lose that game in the second half. Honestly, like there was never one point where like, Philly's going to blow this. Lamar's going to, Never really feel that way. Now, I don't look at that necessarily as an indictment of Lamar, because as I've said, I've given out the numbers, won't do it today, won't relitigate that until it's time to, about how he's struggling against the Chiefs and the Steelers and in the playoffs. The NFC is like the opposite of that. He dominates the NFC. He dominates teams that have never seen him before. Well, second loss in his career against the NFC. So that's, again, the thing with Lamar is that you have to factor in is when you do take that deep ball away, or not the deep ball, I should say, when you take the intermediate routes away from Lamar Jackson, that's kind of the big flaw in his game as a passer. He's accurate. He's precise. Not a great deep ball thrower. Doesn't have the spin in the ball of a Joe Burrow. He doesn't have the arm angles of Mahomes. He doesn't have the arm strength of a Josh Allen. That's going to come into question, and that's what defensive coordinators, smart defensive coordinators like Vic Fangio, are going to try and expose. And as for Baltimore, look, they're 8-5. They're going to make the playoffs. They're not going to fall in the mix like Indianapolis is going to catch them, or Miami, for crying out loud. They're going to make the playoffs. I think Pittsburgh's going to edge them out for the division. The thing with the Ravens, first and foremost, and I never thought I'd say these words, Justin Tucker's a bad kicker. Like, he's not good anymore. We can show you the numbers just yesterday, and even totality in context to what he's been doing. 2 for 4 in field goals, 1 for 2 on extra points. As many or more misses did Justin Tucker have. Justin Tucker had as many or more misses against the Eagles than he did in the entirety of 2012, 2013, 2016, 2017, 2019, and 2021. In those entire seasons, individual seasons, he had either as many or less misses than he had in the entirety of last night. I mean, it got to the point, I saw a video on social media, the Ravens fans were booing him. Never in my lifetime I think Ravens fans would boo Justin Tucker, maybe the greatest kicker ever, was a Super Bowl guy in 2012, hit a bunch of big kicks against the Broncos. It was great. Shell of himself. Something else too with the Ravens that we are going to have to accept and kind of move past. Again, their pass defense has been better as of late. Jalen Hurts threw for 118 yards. Like, and again, some of that was by design. Philadelphia established a run game throughout with Hurts, and particularly, obviously, with Saquon Barkley, who's just amazing. What I question about this team, they're like the opposite of the Steelers in some ways. The Steelers have multiple different ways to beat you, and as for the Ravens, they have multiple different areas you can exploit. Lamar's deep ball. In some cases, the Ravens exploit themselves in the sense that, hey, maybe some days they just won't give Derrick Henry the football. They say, yeah, we're going to throw the ball 35 times. Derrick Henry will get 11, 12 carries. That's basically what happened against the Cleveland Browns weeks ago. They have an identity crisis. Like, they tried to establish Derrick Henry, and Lamar threw 36 times, and the pass defense was good, but the run defense wasn't, which it has been. So by the way, in some respects, that's a credit to Philadelphia's offensive line, which is, I think, still the second best in football. Detroit's offensive line is just on a different level. It's unreal. But Philadelphia's offensive line's excellent. Creating holes for Saquon, like Philadelphia kept, and I give Kellen Moore credit for this. I've been critical of Kellen Moore. Still don't trust him, and I darn sure don't trust Sirianni in fourth down decisions. But sticking to the run, sticking to what got you here, to what you can potentially, as great as Ravens' run defense is, maybe exploit. And eventually Saquon's going to break one. So it's a credit to Philadelphia. It's a credit to, obviously, them adding Saquon just was a game changer. I said last week is the MVP. I still feel that way today. Josh Allen's darn close, but it's going to be, we're going to see this continue to evolve over the course of the season. For Philadelphia, it's just a matter of, can you overcome the head coach? Because I'm sorry, his fourth down decisions are abysmal. We didn't really get to see it in this game against Baltimore, but even against the Rams, first half, awful. Against the Saints, game they won, horrible. Against Jacksonville, they won that game too, but bad decision-makings on fourth down. But this is, I mean, you can make a case it's the best roster of football. Detroit would push back. Pittsburgh, I think, is at least in the same room as some of these teams. Man, I mean, to win a game on the road at Baltimore and Jalen Hurts barely throws for 100 yards, that's pretty impressive. That shows, again, a little Steelers-esque, the depth at how many different ways you can beat teams. Despite a offensive coaching staff that I find to be not reliable without the greatest history of winning. And as for Baltimore, they find different ways to get exposed week in and week out. And this is what I worry about. I said I had the Ravens as the 7th seed coming into the season. And by the way, that could still happen. They did beat the Chargers and the Broncos, but you look at the playoff mix right now, Baltimore is the 6th seed right now, but they're behind the Chargers, and if the Broncos win, they have the same record as Denver. So it's on the board. Maybe the Ravens do fall to the 7th seed. And again, I just felt what they did last year, particularly defensively, a defense that great, it's not as good the next season. That's great defense, historically great defenses don't usually repeat that the following year. They just don't, especially when you lose your all-star defensive coordinator to the Seattle Seahawks, who, by the way, McDonald's doing a great job in Seattle. Yeah, that's going to hurt you. And so, yes, you can get Derrick Henry. You can trade for Deontay Johnson, which I wasn't crazy about from the jump. I warned you, the Steelers fans and Ravens fans, I warned you about that one, and he has been a nothing burger. He ain't done jack in Baltimore. So, yeah, kudos to the Eagles for the win. And as for the Ravens, they're on their bye week now, and Lamar Jackson was talking about that. Who they got next? They got the Giants. So they're going to smoke the Giants, probably fool everybody into thinking that they are on the same level as Buffalo, Kansas City, and Pittsburgh. They're not. Again, the closing stretch, they face the Steelers, Texans. That's a winnable game. It's on Christmas, so who knows? And then they finish with Cleveland, who they should beat at home. So again, the Ravens will be in the playoffs. That's not a question. But taking a step back, I think it was kind of inevitable. Then that's what I thought before the season. Also, too, what do we got next? Oh, speaking of inevitable, the Kansas City Chiefs winning football games feels a bit of an inevitable at this point. So, Kansas City wins what was it's an entertaining game for certain on Black Friday, and kudos to the NFL and Amazon for doing this, but a game which there's no other way to say it, just did not play well at all against the Raiders. Survived because of a terrible snap. Aiden O'Connell should have been more aware, but it was still a bad snap by the center. Worst case, take the delay of game. Now, again, do I think Carlson's going to make that kick after he had been abysmal before that? Probably not. But the point of all this for Kansas City is this, because it's funny, the Chiefs fans see me as like an ally and Chiefs haters don't. I said last week when they beat the Carolina Panthers on a walk-off field goal, I said, folks, we're missing the plot in this. They are bored. Mahomes is it's reflected in a lot of ways in Mahomes on third down. It's first down, second down, but we got to have it on third down. I'm going to be great there. And I'm going to step up my game in the last, 8 weeks or so. I'm going to have a passer over 100. Not quite the old Mahomes, but darn close to it. Still elite play at the quarterback position. One of the best in the league this year. I'm hearing Patrick Mahomes having a terrible season. He's been pretty good according to the numbers, especially recently since they got DeAndre Hopkins. But what I find logically fallible with the criticism of the Kansas City Chiefs is, bad day at the office against the Raiders and play well, shouldn't have won this game. Therefore, they're not contenders. Oh, I don't know. Call me crazy. Maybe I'm watching the games wrong. Yeah, they did have a bad day at the office. It wasn't a symptom of being bored, as I've talked about over the course of their many close wins. They had a bad game. First of all, they won. Kudos to them for doing that. Teams have bad games all the time over the course of a 17-game season. I can make a case that a team I think is going to meet the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, the Detroit Lions, who I love. People watch my show. I love the Lions. Dan Campbell, that's my guy. Detroit did not play well on Thanksgiving Day. They didn't. Chicago, if not for Eberflus falling apart, could have easily won that football game. But we give the Lions credit. Well, listen, they didn't play well, but they were tough, fought, they were resilient, and we give the Lions credit. Also, too fallible, logically fallible, when it comes to criticism of the Kansas City Chiefs. As limited at times as they can look this year, we do realize they looked just like this last year. Just like it. Matter of fact, worse. Because the difference in this year and last year, they were losing these games. They lost to the Raiders when Aiden O'Connell did not complete a pass after the first quarter. They lost to Buffalo. Questionable officiating call, but they lost. Buffalo played them. They lost to an Eagles team that was about to fall apart at the end of the season. Chiefs lost some duds last year. They lost to Denver, blew them out. It was Mahomes' first loss to the Broncos, if I remember correctly. Blew them out. And they won the Super Bowl. I'll say this, and this is 100% honest. If the Chiefs had gone out and said they beat Miami because they were never going to lose to the Miami Dolphins, come on. If Josh Allen and the Bills beat them in round 2, and then they came back this year and looked the same they looked last year, like, man, Mahomes finally didn't make an AFC championship game last year. They've taken a step back. Man, they're winning, but it looks like this last year, and they couldn't even get to the AFC title game. They won the Super Bowl looking worse than this. Not only that, because people, to me, are doing a real disservice equating this poor performance, objectively poor performance, against the Las Vegas Raiders. Aiden O'Connell threw for almost 350 yards. Brock Bowers, who, by the way, holy cow, this kid's special, just like I thought he'd be out of Georgia. Torched him. Bad defensive performance. Shaky offensive performance. Mahomes missed throws, didn't look good at all. They're equating this bad performance with their other close wins. Well, they're Isaiah Likely, toenail. Yes, from the Ravens then needing a 2-point conversion. Now, they may have gotten it. We don't know if they would have gotten it or not. And Kansas City outplayed Baltimore for the majority of that game. Week 2. Oh, Cincinnati. Hey. Yeah, it was a clear pass interference on, I believe it was Xavier Worthy or Rashee Rice. Blatant pass interference. Blatant. Obvious pass interference. Week 3. Should have called a PI against Kyle Pitts. Yeah, there was 5 minutes left in the game. You tell me the Chiefs wouldn't have just, Mahomes does what he always does, just right down the field, and Harrison Butker would have walked it off. All of these different scenarios. Oh, Denver, they blocked the kick. It's like a let's miss the kick for Denver. Kansas City blocked the kick. We gave the Packers credit when they blocked Chicago's kick to win the game. Why don't we give the Chiefs credit when they do it? And something else I'm hearing, and we can show you the numbers, right? To show you a graphic right now, is, all these close wins, not a margin of victory. Let's look at some of these numbers because they tell a big story. Chiefs are 11-1, which is the best record all time through 12 games when going for a three-peat. They've won 14 straight games in one-score games. First all time. More on that in a second because they actually just set that record from another very notable dynasty. But 4.5 points per game differential. That's the worst for a team starting 11-1 better in history. You know who second place was? The 1976 Raiders, who won the Super Bowl. The other teams on that list, I think it's like the 04 Steelers, 2012 Falcons, teams like that, got to the conference title game, which is the bare minimum for the Chiefs in the Mahomes era. But let's go back. We'll put that graphic up again. Look at that middle stat. 14 straight wins in one-score games. First all time. Do you want to know whose record they broke? The New England Patriots between 2003 and 2004 in the midst of their repeat. Two repeat seasons. Back-to-back titles. Don't we remember with New England? When they'd win these close games, they'd make a play in the margins. Maybe there'd be a bad officiating call. So what? And it'd be like, the Patriots are lucky. They're lucky. League's fixed for the Patriots. I mean, they just want Tom Brady to. The Chiefs have won, or on a pace similar to that of the Patriots. Certainly early in their dynasty, they're basically identical to the Patriots. And people get tired of winning. And so people look for excuses. And so I think it's rich when folks, Rex Ryan said, seen teams like this. These are the teams that go down in round 1. Okay, you want to stake your claim that? So the Chiefs going out in round 1 this year. The back-to-back champions who are 11-1, haven't lost a home game since Christmas. So it's been almost a calendar year with the best quarterback and the best coach and the best situational team, them in Pittsburgh. They're gonna get bounced in the first round, which Mahomes has never even been bounced in the second round. Okay, knock yourself out with that take. For the record, I'm in no way guaranteeing the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. They were my pick to do so. They may lose the Super Bowl, but they may lose the AFC title game. Heck, they may lose in the divisional round to Pittsburgh or Buffalo. Maybe the Chargers surprise us all. Who knows? What I'm saying is for the people to act like, oh, they're frauds. They're the 2020 Steelers. They are not the 2020 Steelers. Ben was old. Ben was washed. And, you know, the Steelers hadn't won the last 2 championships, with the most recent of which looking exactly like the previous year. That's the number one point that I really can't understand. The Chiefs looked worse than this last year, and they won the Super Bowl. And for the record, Mahomes had a regular season and an amazing playoffs. I don't know. Look, I get people are tired of the Chiefs. Listen, I get it. But we've got to be somewhat objective at this point. It's pretty insane, the narratives that are surrounding this dynasty. It's identical to what surrounded the Patriots dynasty for years. And by the way, now people love Tom Brady. Now, I mean, Belichick's, going on Netflix with, all the comedians and doing the Brady roast, and he's on TV on the Manning cast. He's like, oh, grumpy Belichick. We love. That was not the case. And the Patriots winning close games the way the Chiefs are winning close games. That people still love Andy. Andy Reid's, I mean, I'd say even Belichick would tell you Andy Reid's more likable than Belichick. But I don't get it. I really don't. Like the logic surrounding I'm not saying you got to pick them to win the Super Bowl, because the Buffalo Bills are coming. The Pittsburgh Steelers are, the scariest team in the AFC. Watch out for the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert. Don't you dare count those guys out. Count Baltimore out. No. I just don't get why folks are acting as if, they're dead and DOA. They got no chance. That to me is just nothing short of lunacy. And it's not backed up by facts. It's just not. Okay. What do we got next? All right. So, man, what a weekend in college football. Trying to pull some of these images up, because when you talk about rivalry week in college football, first of all, I struggle to say rivalry week. I don't know why I've always found that a hard term to say in English. It was insane. So, like, Georgia, by the skin of their teeth, survived Georgia Tech in what was one of the best games of the college football season on Black Friday night in Athens. Could have really put Georgia in some serious trouble, because the Bulldogs were going to be the SEC title game regardless. But had they lost to Georgia Tech, a loss to Texas, Dogs are out. Like, the Dogs would have been out of the college football playoff entirely. Now, even if they lose to Texas, Georgia's going to be in the playoff. There's no question about that. But the main stories around college football, because I'm trying to get this pulled up here because it's fascinating. The main story around college football right now is the flag planting that's going on around the sport. And we can actually show you a couple examples, because the tone was set when Michigan shocked America by upsetting Ohio State as a 20-point dog. Ryan Day put together one of the worst game plans I've seen. I've defended Ryan Day for years, but dude, Michigan will never be weaker than this. You got to beat them at home. Like, that's embarrassing. But this is what Michigan did. And after the game, they all came out as a team, planted the Michigan flag on the big O logo at the horseshoe in Ohio State. By the way, it was repeated later that night by multiple teams. Florida did it against Florida State, planted the flag at midfield. But to go back to the Michigan one. So there was a lot of controversy because it caused a big brawl on the field. There was mace and pepper spray. That went too far. This is not a criminal scene. These guys are not, bandits. I mean, come on, like that. The pepper spray thing that went over the line. Separate them. Do what you got to do. Not pepper spray college athletes for not committing a crime. But there's been a lot of controversy. Oh, they got to ban the flag planting in the sport. To which I say, if you don't want them to plant your flag on your home field, I got a crazy idea. Maybe even revolutionary. Just a suggestion. What if you beat them? It's an idea. Because I think it's safe to say that if Ohio State does what they should have done, and that is win 41-17 against Michigan, maybe the flag wouldn't have been planted by a 6-6 Michigan Wolverines team that gets trounced by their biggest rival on the road. It probably wouldn't have happened. Florida State wasn't one of the biggest jokes in college football. They probably wouldn't have had their flag planted by the Florida Gators at midfield in Tallahassee. And the same could be said. Arizona State, I thought this was cool. Arizona State against Arizona planted a Triton at midfield. That was creative. And then you had, who else? North Carolina did it against NC State. I mean, it was, I think NC State did it against North Carolina. My thing is this. So it's a tough spot. I heard someone say today, and it's an interesting point. If you're a player on the home team and the entire squad goes out there, plants a flag on your logo, you're gonna respond. Prime example, years ago, Cowboys fans and Niners fans remember this. Terrell Owens catches a touchdown in Dallas, in Texas Stadium, runs from the end zone to the big blue star at midfield, and he didn't second time he planted the football in the star. The first time he basked in the glory of God at the star in Texas Stadium, and both times a Cowboy, Emmitt Smith, legend, and George Teague objected to it. They planted him at midfield. They had a problem with it, as they should. Celtics fans were outraged when Kyrie Irving, stomped on Luck at midcourt. Man, that's our logo. Don't disrespect us. Got a right to respond. I get it. But at the same time, beat them. See, I'm of the mindset. This is just me. If you take me down, kind of have a right to do whatever you do. Again, there's certain lines you're not going to cross. You're not going to, don't flip off the stadium. That's, plant the flag at midfield. You came in Ohio State and you kind of embarrassed them. It was a close game, obviously. Took a game-winning field goal under a minute, but you kind of embarrassed Ohio State given the circumstances of that game. You have a right to do whatever you want. It's a rivalry. But why even call it rivalry week if we don't like each other? Or if we do like each other, rather. I mean, if Auburn had upset Alabama at Bryant-Denny Stadium, plant the Auburn flag. Have at it. Plant that sucker on that big, that big A at midfield in Alabama. Have at it. You beat them. To the victors goes the spoils, baby. You celebrate however you want. So I think it showed especially from Ohio State, a certain level of sensitivity, entitlement, arrogance, that you go out there, dog it, and get punked for 60 minutes. And now you got a problem. Now you're going to fight them now that they're planting the flag on your logo. Not that, by the way, not that Ohio State shouldn't have had a problem with that. That's your logo. You play for the O and the horseshoe and all that. You should be upset. Would rather you be, I think Buckeyes fans would probably agree with me. I'd rather you be a little bit more upset that Michigan is pushing you around, that Ohio State, for reasons I can't quite comprehend, is trying to win a who can be more physical battle with Michigan when they would absolutely torch them on the perimeters against Michigan's beat-up defense, beat-up secondary to be precise. I'd be more upset about that. I wish the Ohio State players were more upset about that than a flag going on their logo. And Ryan Day, too. Again, defended Ryan Day for years. I have. My thing was hey, he's losing to Jim Harbaugh. A lot of people do that. Jim Harbaugh's a better coach. But Fox shows the angle of Ryan Day standing there on the field. Looks like he's got hands on hips and just kind of staring as if it's bro, Michigan's 7-5. You're not going to play them again until next year. It's not like a situation where you'll be oh, we'll see you again. No, Michigan's 7-5, going to play in some meaningless bowl game and be back next year, and we'll see what they are. So, listen, on the Ohio State's part, I thought it was clown behavior by everybody involved, players, coaches. In the case of Michigan, to the victors goes the spoils, baby. You do what you want to do. I'd say the overall majority of Michigan fans didn't think they had a shot to win this game. Forget make it close. Didn't think they had a shot to win this game. And they did. Shocked America. Turned the playoff race, or at least played part in turning the playoff race upside down. Now Ohio State, rather than potentially getting a bye if they were to beat Oregon next week, they're probably going to have to go on the road potentially. Maybe. We'll see what the rankings look like. So I'll tell you what, I think there's a level of sensitivity that I'm seeing from, it's win with class. It's why call it rivalry week? Like, do we like each other or not? Like, that's something that I really struggle with. Is I call it like the Draymond Green syndrome. Is like, be like, we want physical, tough guys in the NBA. I hate Draymond Green. It's like, well, did you want it back, or let's be a little bit more consistent here, because Lambeer was doing way worse things than Draymond. So was Rodman. Same thing a little bit in the celebration sports. It's like, it's too buddy. These guys like each other too much. And then they plant the flag in midfield. I don't know. Like to see a little bit more consistency on that front. You know? Michigan's classless. Like, they like them. They don't like Ohio State. It's the biggest rivalry in college football. They literally call it the game. Kind of self-explanatory. The game. I don't know. Seemed overly sensitive by Ohio State fans and by college football fans who had a problem with their rival teams beating them. Don't be mad at the rivals. Be mad at your players. Be mad at your coaches for not beating them. Arizona fans, North Carolina fans. You know, I mean, Sark for Texas, they beat Texas A&M, and the players were going to plant the flag at the Texas A&M logo at Kyle Field, and Sark, stopped him from doing it. Listen, to each their own. I'm not going to criticize Sark for doing that, because it probably would have started a brawl, and Sark is not looking for guys to get suspended for the SEC championship game. But that's the one thing too, and then we'll move on. Then we'll go to break. That's one thing too I'm hearing is, you got to suspend players for conference title games. Like, no, you don't. I mean, if it's like the fourth stringer, it doesn't matter either way. But we want to see that. Like, there's not really. I was talking about this with my co-host Asher. Shout out to Asher Moore, triple option co-host. Please check our show out every Monday, 10 a.m. to noon, and every Friday from noon to 1 Eastern on the TuneIn app. And but Asher made a really good point. He said, "Man, you look at all these great matchups in the conference championship games in college football, and injuries really aren't a story. Like, all these teams are, we're in December, so guys are beat up, but relatively healthy. Don't mess it up by suspending guys because of a brawl. Like, come on, man. If I'm going to, there's degrees to this. I'm going to suspend a guy for a big game if he does something truly reprehensible. In any other case, man, let the kids play. Baker Mayfield kind of said it after the game, after the Buccaneers game yesterday, because they asked him about it. Because Baker Mayfield, they're calling him like the originator, the godfather of planting the flag, which he is. Oklahoma beat Ohio State in early 2016. I remember watching this game. I was at Calhoun's on the River in Knoxville after a Volunteers game. Or it might have been 2017, actually. It was 2016, 2017. And Baker Mayfield goes out there, waves the big OU flag, and then, bam, plants it at midfield at Ohio State. So he was kind of the originator. And so best person to ask is him. And they asked him after the Buccaneers win yesterday, and he's like, let the kids play. That's what we love about college football. The pageantry, the hatred, the rivalries. Don't take that away. The flag planting makes it even better. All right, be back after the break on Carving Up Live. Do a Week 13 NFL recap, and then obviously talk about tonight's matchup between the Cleveland Browns and the Denver Broncos. So a Week 13 recap. Stay tuned. We got lots to discuss after the break. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Just a crazy day around the National Football League. We'll get to our Week 13 NFL recap. I did want to say, though, and maybe this is a good transition for our first game to discuss, is the New York Jets as a favorite, which they've been 9 times in 12 games. And for the record, no team has ever started their first 12 games, been favorites in 9 of them, and started 3-9. That's never happened in the history of the National Football League. It's almost like Vegas, and it feels like everybody overrated the Jets in a form that was, insane before the season started. Jets lose 26-21. What a surprise to the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle's offense wasn't even that great in this game. They were bad in the red zone. Geno was shaky, and Aaron Rodgers was horrible, per usual. He had a passer rating of 73 and a QBR of 28, and he threw a pick 6 to a defensive lineman. And by the way, we actually, thanks to the Kansas City Chiefs and Las Vegas Raiders game, we actually have a brand new quarterback to add to the list of quarterbacks who have thrown for 300 yards more recently than one Aaron Rodgers. Would you like to see it? Here we go. Guys that have done it more recently than Aaron. Andy Dalton. We got Bailey Zappi, who literally just got cut today. Baker, touchdown maker. Brock Purdy has done it more recently. Bryce Young. How about Bryce Young, by the way, recently? His counterpart, CJ Stroud, has done it more recently. So has Caleb Williams and Carson Wentz. They have thrown for 300 yards more recently than Aaron Rodgers. Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones, brand new Minnesota Viking. Davis Mills, Derek Carr has done it more recently. Desmond friggin' Ritter has done it. Gardner Minshew has done it. Geno Smith has done it. Jacoby Brissett, 300 yards more recently than Aaron Rodgers. Jake Browning, Jalen Hurts, Jameis Winston, Jared Goff has done it more recently than Aaron. So is Jarrett. Is that Jarrett Stidham right there? I believe it is. So is Jimmy Garoppolo and Joe Burrow, who throws for 300 weekly. Old man Joe Flacco and Jordan Love and Josh Allen, maybe the MVP frontrunner. I believe that's PJ Walker. Justin Fields has done it. Justin Herbert has done it. Kenny Pickett has done it. Kirk Cousins, who might be as washed as Aaron at this point, has done it more recently than Aaron. So is Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson, and Mac Jones has done it. Matt Ryan, who's on CBS now, has done it more recently than Aaron. So has Matthew Stafford and Mike White and Nick Mullins. And I think maybe that's PJ Walker. Josh Johnson was the guy previously. Mahomes and Russell Wilson and Tannehill, who's unemployed. And so is Sam Howell and Sam Darnold and Teddy Bridgewater, who's retired. Tom Brady, who's also been retired for a while, working for Fox. Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, Tyrod Taylor, who's Aaron's backup, Will Levis. We also got Zach Wilson. We got Bo Nix. We got Jaden Daniels. We got Cooper Rush. And most recently, welcome to the club, Aiden O'Connell. All of these guys have thrown for 300 yards more recently than Aaron Rodgers. If I can put it into its proper context, we do carving out the context on Wednesdays, but let's provide context on this Monday night. The entire Raiders quarterback room, has passed for 300 yards more recently than Aaron Rodgers. Happy birthday, Aaron. The Jets are still awful. You know, it's funny. There's been a discussion today. Should the Jets bench Aaron Rodgers? And which I say, well, depends on what their goal is in the last 5 games this year. Because if the goal is to maintain a level of credibility to where you're saying you're putting the best players in the field, then yes, you should bench Aaron. Well, no, Tyrod Taylor looked better last year with the Giants than Aaron's looked this year. By the way, Tyrod Taylor, more passing yards, more 300-yard games more recently than Rodgers. But also, on the other side of that coin, well, if we want to tank, if we want to be as bad as humanly possible, probably need to keep Aaron out there. And by the way, for Aaron, it's a win-win. Like, I don't know how beat up he is, but tack on, do what you can to tack on to that coveted passer rating, which you're damaging by the week, and add some touchdowns, make the final stat total look as good as possible, because we know that's Aaron's gonna be known for great stats and throwing a pretty ball. That's about it. Breeze is known for the accuracy. Manning's known for his surgical preparation at the line of scrimmage. Brady's known for the rings. These days, Mahomes is known for the rings. You know, that winning thing, Aaron doesn't really do it much. Almost like this could have been called from a mile away a long time ago by yours truly. Shocker, the Jets are still the Jets. The Colts beat the Patriots yesterday in what was a really entertaining fourth quarter, 25-24. Listen, I'll say this. They lost again. The Patriots aren't that good. Man, Drake May might be the real deal, guys. I'll tell you, that arm, again, he throws a couple passes a game where it's like, what the heck was this guy doing? Okay? But he also makes some throws where it's like, yeah, I see why he was the 3rd overall pick of the draft out of North Carolina. And I was skeptical on Drake May. I'm like, man, high ceiling, really low floor. Like, what's he going to be? Somewhere in between right now. And so we'll see if the Patriots, we'll see what he does the rest of the year and what the Patriots can do in this offseason to maximize that. First of all, they got to upgrade the O-line. They've got to go all O-line in this draft. They've got their guy. They hope so, certainly. Draft some receivers maybe in the 4th, 5th round. Go and get one in free agency, a good veteran. Go get offensive linemen, particularly in this draft. Drake May can play. There's no question about it. He can play. Anthony Richardson sort of can play, I guess. Still as inaccurate as can possibly be, but hey, clutch in the 4th quarter, the 4th down, ran that one and just powered his way in for the 2-point conversion to win it. Great call by Shane Steichen, who remains one of the smartest offensive coaches in professional football. What he's getting out of this kid, despite the glaring it's like watching Trey Lance, like a bigger Trey Lance with Anthony Richardson, and what Shane Steichen's doing is wizardry. Patrick Brown in the comments. What is up, Patrick? And here we go, i.e. the Joker. Ayahuasca Rogers, no accountability. Right on schedule, took the pony and blamed 11 players on the field. 1 week it's rain, the receivers, the coaches, all the smirking, flexing in the Pat McAfee show with Tay Adams. Again, this goes back to him skipping mandatory minicamp to hang out with King Tut. I picked the Jets to go 7-10 this year, Patrick, and to anybody else watching or listening. I picked the Jets to go 7-10. And many folks thought, oh, you're hating on him. I'm like, I don't know. He's not that good. His OC's terrible. The head coach isn't that good. The roster's, the O-line's still not great. And I don't know. They weren't that good last. Like, it's the Jets. They're not good. And I factored all the things into them being 7-10, particularly centered around Aaron Rodgers, because again, it is a quarterback's league. I'm like, man, he's old. He's off an Achilles surgery. He hasn't been good since the 2021 season. He's 40, and I should have factored in. I certainly factored in the absence of the mandatory minicamp, as Patrick pointed out. That's all under the same umbrella as doesn't really care about football that much at this point. He really doesn't. Not to say he didn't before. Aaron has been one of the smartest guys in the line of scrimmage, so he's watched film. Reading a defense, one of the best, no question, throughout the course of his career. But as he's getting up there in age, as he's gotten other interests, right? No problem. You do you, man. I got listen, Aaron's a strong, I imagine, right-leaning libertarian. Man, live and let live. But don't drag an NFL organization along with you. So, that's who knows what Aaron's future is. I actually made a prediction on the radio show on the Triple Option with Asher. I said, I think Aaron's, that 4th down ball where he missed Garrett Wilson badly. Holy cow. Not even close. I said, I think there's a shot that might have been the last throw of Aaron's career. Now, according to Jeff Ulbrich, Aaron's going to start next week, which tells me Jets probably tanking and they just don't want to piss off Aaron because you got to walk on eggshells like crazy with that guy. Worst leader in sports. What the heck is his market next year? The only potential suitor maybe is the Tennessee Titans. People have said, the Raiders. I'm like, I don't know. Tom Brady's part of the ownership now. Raiders have been incompetent quarterback play most of my life. They want to start anew. They may draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Moore. Like, they want to start with a young playmaker. The Titans are like, is Will Levis the answer? I guess Aaron, he'd sell tickets. Trust me. I love Titans fans. I live in Tennessee, and dear Lord, do I love the city of Nashville. Love Nashville. It's the best. That stadium's dead. I was there in week 3. I was there with my family. My sister got to see the Packers. She's a big Packers fan. I heard "Go Pack Go" more than Titans cheering, to put it mildly. I know the Packers are way better than the Titans, but still, it was, my gosh, it was dead in Nissan Stadium. Dead. No atmosphere. Aaron puts butts in seats. He's interesting. That's what I thought. Listen, if Aaron retires after this year, I will be bummed. I will be sad because that's a lot of content creation gone. Don't have that anymore. Mahomes isn't spouting conspiracy theories, and Josh Allen isn't blaming the whole team, and Lamar Jackson isn't skipping mandatory minicamp. We'll have to find another all-time gifted but kind of strange quarterback. I don't know. And Patrick, every excuse that doesn't pertain to winning needs to be removed from the organization. All applies to everyone except him. Yep, you think? If he wanted to run for vice president, he's excused. I wish to God RFK would have picked him and stayed in the race. I really do, because the visual of a J.D. Vance, Tim Walz, Aaron Rodgers debate would have been more entertaining than Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. Like, as entertaining as that was, and even though she lost the election, I think she pretty much cooked him on the crowd size thing. But that would have been fun. That would have been like Vance and Walz agree on nothing. And just to see them like look across like, who the hell is this guy? Like that would have been hilarious. Like what would the hosts have done? The moderators, listen, darn it, RFK, you should have stayed in the race. That would have been must-see TV. No question about that. And for Aaron to be like, guys, sorry, got to skip practice, got a vice presidential debate to attend and to prep for. Anywho, Aaron, please don't retire because you are so much fun. Who else we have? Yeah, Colts beat the Patriots. Talk about that. Chargers and Falcons. That was one of the more interesting early window games. So I picked the Chargers. This is my Bryce's Bleak Bet game. And I got it right. Chargers, I believe the Chargers were favored in this game. Took the Chargers. Didn't feel great about it. I'm like, they're on a short week, but I think they're better than Atlanta. Atlanta doesn't have a very good defense, but Atlanta's on a bye. Like, okay. And they're coming off the blowout loss. Like, I guess I'll pick the Chargers, who I've been high on all season long, by the way, but I didn't love them that spot, but I did take them to win. That was, so on one side of the coin, you're like, man, Jim Harbaugh. Like, again, Jim Harbaugh is cut from the Mike Tomlin and Dan Campbell tree, or cut from that same cloth, at least, of just A++++ culture. Like, guys love him. Guys play their arse off for this guy. You never feel like they're out of it. Like, that's Jim Harbaugh. That's who he's been his whole life, his whole coaching life. Stanford, San Diego State, Niners, Michigan, now the Chargers. It's what he does. So that's the positive. I mean, the Chargers, ladies and gentlemen, this is a true stat, did not cross midfield in the second half. With Justin Herbert in the running game, now J.K. Dobbins is beat up. I think they might have put him on IR. That's tough. But with Herbert, and didn't cross midfield and found a way to win, because we talk about Aaron Rodgers being washed. It's time to start having some uncomfortable conversations about Kirk Cousins. Not one, not two, not three, 4 interceptions. 2, by the way, could have thrown even more than that. He was awful. By the way, QBR, I don't know how he got a QBR 34. That's high. And a pass rating of 40, which is not. That's horrible. 2 of the interceptions. So the pick 6, I'm sure everybody's seeing the internet, it was like a butterfly just fluttering in the air for some 5th-round guy for the Chargers to pick off and take the distance for what ended up being the difference in the game. But Kirk also threw an end zone interception that was into what looked like, I called it quintuple coverage. There was like 5, 6, 7, 9 Chargers in the end zone. It was unbelievable. Here's what I would do if I was Atlanta. Because listen, Raheem Morris, it's not like he's coaching for his job. It's not like he's not Mike McCarthy, where it's like, I got to win as many games as possible just to stay employed. He's in his first year. The Falcons are going to obviously give him leeway. If I were the Atlanta Falcons, you're 6-6. Now you're tied with Tampa now that the Buccaneers have won 2 in a row. Tampa seems to, even though the Atlanta beat him twice, Tampa seems to maybe have the inside track to win that division, even though the Falcons can still win it. Here's what I would do. Start Kirk Cousins against the Minnesota Vikings. He played there. You don't want to bench him before he plays in his old stomping grounds. He didn't win much, but he did have success, put up good numbers. Minnesota loves Kirk, or likes Kirk. But also that Vikings defense is unbelievable. And so if Kirk has another bad game, you got this kid, Michael Penix Jr. Folks know during the draft process, freaking love this kid. Loved him in college at Washington. Think he's special. Deep ball accuracy. Think he's going to be great with Atlanta. He's had time to sit. He's had time to learn behind Kirk, veteran. Start him on Monday Night Football. Big stage, I get it, but Michael Penix Jr. is playing a lot of big games. Playing a national title game. He's seen the big stage. Monday Night Football at the Las Vegas Raiders. Bad defense, bad team, probably tanking. They're going to fire their coach. Bad quarterback play, although Friday didn't seem to indicate that. Start him against the Raiders. Then who you got? You got the lowly Giants. Then you got Washington, who's good but has a terrible defense. And then you host the Carolina Panthers, who it'll be better for them at that point to lose than to win. And then, by the way, you may still win the division. Like, Penix is good immediately. Yeah, you could have that. But I think Atlanta's got to bench Kirk. It's after that you play. Now, if Kirk plays well against Minnesota, then you keep Kirk in and you finish the season with the veteran. And then you probably move him this offseason because somebody will take Kirk Cousins. But I think we could potentially be 2 weeks away from Michael Penix Jr. making his first start. Like 2 weeks tonight on Monday Night Football against the Raiders. So that'd be interesting. Texans, Jaguars. Big story from this game is Trevor Lawrence got clocked by I believe it's Al's what's his name? I forgot to say his name. Get it right. Al-Shaair, knocking Trevor Lawrence out of the game is probably the dirtiest play of the NFL season. He needs to be suspended 2 games. It was dirty. It was uncalled for. Trevor Lawrence is giving himself up on a slide. It was, if it was Tua, oh my God, it would have been riots in the street. Like, it would have been, oh my gosh. So hopefully Trevor's okay. Trevor actually, at this point, is sneakily kind of has a history of head injuries. So let's hope Trevor's going to be okay in the long run. But Mac Jones came in and actually, he's the worst quarterback in the league, but bad clock's right twice today. He was fine. Had a pass rating of 105, but Houston survived at the end. It's time we have not an uncomfortable conversation, but a here and now conversation about C.J. Stroud. He's regressed. I've talked about this all season long, but the gap, I'm not saying he's not going to be better because I thought C.J. was the best prospect in that 2023 draft. Gap's closed a little between he and Bryce. Like, C.J. was out of this world great rookie year, and Bryce was horrible. Bryce Young's been pretty good over the last few games. Like, he's put the Panthers in positions. He has won multiple games, almost beat the Chiefs last week, and could have easily beaten Tampa if Baker didn't come up clutch at the end. So I still think C.J. Stroud, he's going to bounce back. He's still year 2. I will say, and C.J. strikes me as a humble guy. He's a man of the Lord. I think C.J.'s a good dude. I have the utmost respect for him personally. A bit of a humbling moment, though, for C.J. in the sense, remember week 2? You remember that? The Texans beat the Bears. That was when we all thought, oh, the Bears aren't that good, which they ended up not being. And the Texans, man, they could be a contender. And C.J. outplays Caleb Williams and goes to midfield. Hey, young fella. And he was very respectful about it, but he's like, hey, young fella, this is how it's done in the NFL. It's like, C.J., you're 2 years in. You're not, it's like you're Aaron Rodgers at the end or Ben Roethlisberger or Brady. It's like not like you're a 15-year veteran pulling young fella aside and be like, hey, here's how it's done. Like, C.J., you were a rookie last year. And by the way, Caleb has been objectively better than C.J. in that stretch. Passer rating, touchdown interception ratio. So let's give C.J. a little bit of like, okay, the situation, particularly the offensive line, was not good last year, and he was great. He needs to step it up. Vikings came back, beat the Cardinals 23-22. Listen, Sam Darnold clutch in the fourth quarter. I've been kind of like, when's the Sam Darnold moment? It was looking iffy, and then Sam Darnold, bam, couple scoring drives in the fourth quarter to steal a game from Arizona. Kyler threw another terrible interception. That's back-to-back weeks now. Now the Cardinals are 6-6, down a game in the division. We'll see what happens with Arizona moving forward. I think do they have Seattle next week? I believe they got the Seahawks in Arizona, with the Cardinals are a field goal favorite. So that should be a fun matchup and one that could certainly make waves in the NFC West, which is hotly contested. What do you got? Commanders took care of Tennessee. Will Levis went right back to being Will Levis. Threw a couple touchdowns, but was inaccurate all day. No, he's Will Levis. I mean, that's kind of what he's going to do. But Washington, listen, the curse of the terrible town. They disrespected. This should not have done that. Washington, learn your lesson. It still could caught them over the course of the season. We'll see. But took care of business. That was my upset of the week, and I was dead wrong on it. Rams beat the Saints 21-14 in New Orleans. Taysom Hill, God bless him, out for the year. Hate to see that. Stafford is just, he's getting out there in age, folks, but man, the arm angles, the deep ball, God, this guy's still good. Listen, we bashed Aaron Rodgers. Aaron made a quote years ago when Stafford was still in Detroit. Might have been like the 2019-20 season when it was at the end of Stafford's time there. And he said, like, y'all got to watch his pregame workout routine. It's something to behold. And we see it, by the way, forget pregame routine. We see it in the real games, in the real plays. He's great. I still maintain my prediction. Still got the Rams winning with this division. I think they're going to run down Seattle. Who obviously took care of business against the Jets, but kudos to the Rams. The Buccaneers beat the Panthers. Cousin of mine who's a big Buccaneers fan was at this game. Shout out to him. And listen, I'm thinking big. I had Carolina the points, so I was like, man, Tampa, don't score on your first drive. Carolina, please cover. And they did, and Bryce Young played well. Led what looked like the game-winning drive in regulation, and we're thinking, man, here's Bryce Young. And then Baker Mayfield, who had a bad game, got hurt his ankle. He's a gamer. I've always said Baker's a gamer. Drives him to field goal range, clutch kick, send it to overtime. There's, a turnover in overtime, and then Baker leads the game-winning drive at the end. For the win for the Buccaneers. Now they're tied with Atlanta at the top of the NFC South. Mike Evans is back. Made a one-handed catch in the end zone. He's as great as ever. And what's Tampa Bay's schedule? Who they got next week? We talk about the Falcons. Got the Vikings. That's tough. Okay, Tampa's got a home date with the Las Vegas Raiders. So good shape for Tampa. Then they got to go to the Chargers. That's a tough one. At Dallas. Dallas is playing hard, but Tampa's better. Panthers again, we'll see. And then the Saints, we'll see about them down the stretch of the season. But Baker's a gamer. He is. Bax is in the comments. Says, talk about Russ. I got him. Russ and 2 on fantasy. Who should I start next week? Well, listen, man. I mean, I'm gonna be an impartial observer. I'm obviously not trying to lead the witness in any way, shape, or form. What I will tell you is that it's a home game for the Steelers next week against Cleveland. Russell in the Steelers office didn't look great in the snow, but again, it's snow. And as for the Dolphins, who does Miami play next week? The Dolphins got, who they got? I'm trying to look at their schedule right now. The Jets. Okay, they should win that game against the Jets. 2 is great at home. 2 is great in warm weather. 2 is great against bad teams like the Jets. But newsflash, Cleveland's not much better. And Mr. Unlimited's got it rolling. So, Bax, if I had to give you advice, start Mr. Unlimited because he's got it rolling for the Steelers. Start him. Thank me later. And come back in a week. And I appreciate you commenting. Thank me later. What else do we have around the net? So I'm looking at the Week 14 schedule. I think that was it. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. That's our Week 14 or Week 13 recap around the National Football League. Bax says he's still split with the Fields. Fields was coming in for short yardage situations. So, I mean, by the way, he did at the end of the game yesterday against Cincinnati when the Steelers were trying to burn the clock out. They gave it to Fields on a 3rd down. For some reason, the Bengals didn't cover Fields. I'm not quite sure why. It's like they're bringing in Fields specifically to run in all likelihood. But no, Fields is in like short yardage situations, goal line, stuff like that, because you don't want to get Russell Wilson at this stage of his career, at this age and stage, beat up. So, but Russell's taking the majority of the first team snaps. He's thrown to George Pickens, he's thrown to Pat Freiermuth and Calvin Austin. So Fields is playing, but in situational downs. Let's put it that way. But listen, I misspoke there. Russell Wilson playing. No, Russell Wilson's balling. I was skeptical, but man, and listen, I was iffy. My guy Patrick, I love my guy Patrick out there. He was doing the Steelers country, let's weld. I'm like, you're probably right. It's just all of a sudden now the Steelers are the most dangerous team in the AFC today. That defense, bad day at the office, but it is Joe Burrow, and he does that to most teams. The Steelers defense with the best player on earth on that side of the ball, TJ Watt. Steelers running game. Can we show the numbers one more time? What the Steelers are doing since Russell took over? You see it right there. 2nd in yards per game, 4th in pass yards per game, 8th in rush yards per game, 5th in the thing that matters most, scoring points. They're 5th in that since Russell took over. Number 1 in time possessions. They're stingy. They don't give the ball back to you. They don't do that. All right, we got a game tonight to close out. We'll call this an extension of the Thanksgiving Day weekend, and what was an amazing weekend in college football and in the National Football League. And now we've got a Monday night clash. Denver Broncos from Mile High. Denver in this game, by the way, favored by 2. Favorite, we got the number. Yeah, favorite. 2. My bad. Favorite minus 6.5 at home. So listen, Cleveland's an extra rest. And listen, I always say great coaches off extra rest, very dangerous. And I think Kevin Stefanski, I don't know if I go so far as say great. I think Kevin Stefanski's really, really smart, really talented, has gotten the most out of some bad quarterbacks. So, you keep that in mind. Jameis Winston, I do not consider a bad quarterback, but Jameis does have his limitations, and he could be, again, i.e. Baker Mayfield, a poor man's Baker Mayfield. He could be fun and make some plays and fourth downs, and he's going to, listen, tonight, if it's Lisa Salters or Laura Rutledge, whoever's doing the sideline for Cleveland, they're going to interview him, and he is going to preach a sermon. Jameis Winston, future Baptist minister, calling it today. He's great. Great interview. Maybe the best in the league. But he's a roller coaster. We know this. Denver, on the other side, has a defense that is playing out of its mind. Denver offensively has a quarterback in Bo Nix who has been, over the last 8 weeks, the most consistent of the rookie quarterbacks. Drake May has his bumps and bruises. He's also playing with a bad team. We give Drake a little bit of a pass there. Caleb has been amazing, but again, it's not terribly accurate at times. And in the case of Jaden Daniels, he's gotten back on his feet, but Jaden had a rough stretch of 3 games. Bo Nix has been the most consistent as of late. Doesn't turn the ball over, gives the upside, efficient, all those different things. Sean Payton's done an amazing job. Maybe a Coach of the Year finalist, if I do say so myself. Cortland Sutton's great. Listen, I thought about strongly taking Cleveland the points. I did. But I got to thinking about it, like, okay, Jameis had a great game against Baltimore, a bad game against the Saints, a really good game against the Steelers. It feels like it's going to be kind of a roller coaster. He is a low-end starter, high-end backup. That's what I call guys like him, Gardner Minshew. So pendulum's probably going to swing in a direction that the Browns fans probably don't want it to swing. Broncos are playing good. By the way, the Broncos are in a spot where they could climb the standings in the AFC potentially. So give me the Broncos in the spot. They do cover 24-13 over the Browns. Again, people aren't talking about this Denver defense, really this Denver team, because they're just not national television much. They're going to be tonight. So this is a good showcase for them. But this Broncos defense has been playing really, really well all season long. And I mean, the Browns traded Amari Cooper. Nick Chubb's back, but he's rusty. Jameis can be up. Jameis can be down. I think it's the night where he's down on the road in Denver. Tough place to win. Altitude, all of it. But he will give us a good soundbite. And I get on Cleveland. Their fans are just obnoxious. But it's hard not to find yourself rooting for Jameis Winston. You got to admit. I got to admit. I mean, as a man of faith myself, it's the guy's preaching. Every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, whatever the case may be, Jameis is preaching a message. No question about that. All right. We will see you guys. That is all the time we have for today's show. Actually, before we get that, I apologize. Bax has one more question. Is Najee staying running back 1? Because I'm starting to worry about him. I also got him on fantasy. Well, listen, Najee got hurt. He blamed it on his teammates' girlfriend's Thanksgiving food. Take that for what you will. Like, he kind of slowed up. I'm like, oh my God, did Najee pull a hamstring? Oh no. He came back in the game and it was really good. As was James Warren, Cordell Patterson did his thing. So, yeah, Najee's still good. Najee, I would argue he's played as well as he ever has played in his career, because now teams aren't just going to load the box the whole time because they don't respect the Steelers' deep passing game. So, yeah, I would say keep Najee in there. Anybody in the Steelers' offense, the way they're playing, backs, keep him in there. All right, that's all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. It's something else too. We'll have Bryce's Best 10. We'll have Carving Up the Context. Does the NFL have a treat for us? Thursday Night Football, Packers, Lions. Come on now. Cannot wait to predict that game. Thursday Night Football, predict that. Bryce's Best 10, my top 10 teams in the National Football League going into Week 14. We'll have a number of other situations in things in the NFL to discuss. Maybe Aaron Rodgers will get benched. Who knows? If he does, we'll just have to pull this one out.
You done messed up, Aaron!
That's the reality for the Jets right now. So there you go. Be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live, except for your sleeping cat. It has been freaking cold here in Tennessee, and let's just say Nealon does not care for it. He is a warm weather individual, and I could not agree with him more. But please tell your friends about it, your family about it. And if you have not subscribed, again, just takes a couple seconds. Hit the red subscribe button down there, and boom, you are part of the Carving It Up family. Just as importantly, be sure to go to subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. Patrick Brown was in the comments today. Shout out to Patrick. By the way, shout out to everybody who commented. Thank you so much. Patrick writes some great articles for the Grid's website. Check those out. We've got some other awesome content creators. Please tune in, by the way, tomorrow night for the 8 o'clock spot, live at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time on the Grid's YouTube channel, the best sports game show in town. I'm the host / judge / moderator, and we have some great contestants in for the show, so definitely stay tuned for that. All right. We will see you guys on Wednesday. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Because it doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center, because this is an issue that affects every single one of us as Americans on a day-to-day basis. And no matter anybody tries to tell you, oh, it's not a problem, or oh, there's only one solution to the problem. All of that's BS. All that's not true. It's a huge problem that needs a number of detailed and nuanced solutions to solve it. So yeah, we gotta keep one another safe in this great country. So let's make our voices heard on this issue because it impacts all of us. All right, man. I'll tell you what. I love Thanksgiving. I love football during the Thanksgiving weekend. I mean, the Thanksgiving games, 2 of the 3 were close and fun, especially the first one. The Black Friday game came down the wire. Everybody's mad at the Chiefs. College football was, wacky on Friday night, wacky on Saturday. NFL was typical NFL on Sunday, unpredictable as always. Love it. We'll see you then. See you on Wednesday. Stay safe out there, buddy. God bless y'all. Peace out. Mr. Unlimited, baby. He's coming for you. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.